So what is the best budget gaming laptop in 2019? It's a jungle out there, guys. I'm gonna do my best to help you out here. Let's get into it. Hey, how is it going, guys? It's Robin here on this channel. I cover cheap PC components, keyboards, mice and headsets and everything in between, all gaming related. And so if you're interested in that, consider subscribing and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on future videos. So I should say here that I've researched and I spent quite a lot of time here, guys. And I eventually ended up with 3 models that I'm happy to recommend here. So my top 3 budget gaming laptops for 2019. Let's start with the best deal first and then let's move on to the most budget one, and finally, yeah, we're gonna deal with the heaviest and beefiest one last. So first off, we got this HP laptop for a little bit over $600. Now typically for 600 bucks you're only getting a GTX 1050 with 2GB of VRAM at most and a Core i5 Kaby Lake 7th generation CPU. Again, at best. Now this one actually comes in with the GTX 1050 Ti with 4GB of video memory and the 8th generation Core i5 8300H with up to 4 GHz. You're getting 8 GB of RAM, which is still alright. For storage, 1 TB, 7200 RPM hard drive, and this is a mechanical hard drive, so although it is a fast spinning drive, that should be said, it will be slower than a flash based SSD, but considering the $600 price tag, it is still a fantastic deal here, guys. Load times will be a bit longer here, but you're getting plenty of space for many games instead. And I have researched a bit here and it supports both M2 and M2 NVMe SSD if you want to upgrade later on. So you can put in an SSD if you want in this one, if you want that. You can also upgrade the RAM up to 16 GB later because you got a free slot for that as well. In addition, you're getting a backlit keyboard. We got onboard Wi-Fi that supports the AC standard. We got SD card reader, we got USB 3.1 and a full HD 15.6 inches IPS display and a battery life that should last you around 7.5 hours, though this number will decrease if you're gaming on it. Now for $600, guys, it's a brilliant deal and the best deal I was able to find at this price point. You can find the link down below. Now moving on, guys, if you're looking for something even cheaper than the 600 price tag, we got this Acer Aspire E15. And yeah, it's a great deal for around $550 US. Now if your budget is below $500, I would look on either refurbished machines on Amazon or the used market instead. Now generally speaking, I don't like to recommend shipping out too much on laptops in general, especially not for a laptop you're planning on gaming on, as you're gonna end up with a potato experience. It is not worth it. It's not fun, don't even think about it. So for around $560 US, give or take, you're getting an 8th generation processor, Kaby Lake refresh here. It's a Core i5 8250 with a U in its name, and U stands for ultra low voltage, and this processor is optimized for better power consumption and temperature and therefore clocked a little bit lower than the HP one. That being said, it is still a 4-core 8-threaded CPU and it has a max turbo frequency of 3.5, so it's a little bit slower. You're getting 8 GB of RAM and 250 GB of fast SSD. You got full HD 1080p IPS display, 15.6 inches and a battery life that should last you around 15 hours if you're only playing Minesweeper on it. Now to top this all off, this laptop comes fitted with a dedicated graphics chip from Nvidia called MX150 with 2 GB of fast GDDR4 memory, and although this isn't a GTX 1050 card, it still performs quite good in games, and yeah, it's miles ahead of the integrated Intel graphics. For around $550 US, guys, it's a brilliant deal and you find the link down below. Now if your budget is a bit higher, I strongly recommend this DELL machine instead. Now what makes this machine shine is of course the GTX 1060, and for under $900 it's a brilliant deal since you're actually getting the fastest GTX 1060 model with the 6GB of VRAM. Again, you got a 15.6 inches Full HD 1920 by 1080p and a slightly older Core i5 7300 HQ processor clocked at 3.5 GHz and 8GB of RAM and a 256 flash-based SSD. In terms of I/O, you're getting Thunderbolt, 3x USB 3 and all the other stuff you're always getting on laptops such as HDMI and audio. This is a brilliant laptop from a company I've always ranked very high among laptops in general. Dell has always been delivering high quality screens and build quality in general, and for under $900 guys, on sale right now should be said, it is a very good deal. Now with this all being said, if none of these caught your attention, here are some of my best general tips to have in mind when purchasing a gaming laptop. These tips should help you out not ending up disappointed with low frame rate, stutter, and yeah, basically a sad experience. And we're gonna be starting with the CPU. Now when it comes to the CPU in a gaming laptop, you should look for a processor from Intel first and foremost, and more specifically the Core i7. Now that more and more games are being optimized to handle more cores and threads, but yeah, even the Core i5 could potentially be worth looking into. However, with that said, in 9 times out of 10, bottlenecking in a gaming laptop will almost always be the graphics card. So if you need to sacrifice something here guys, definitely sacrifice a bit of the CPU, as you want to spend as much that you possibly can on the graphics card. Now a few things here: older CPUs from the 7000 series, also known as the Cable Lake, for example the Core i5 7300 HQ, have 4 cores but are lacking hyper-threading, but the newer 8000 series, also known as Coffee Lake, for example the Core i5 8300H, have hyper-threading, which will affect the gaming performance and will give you an increase in frame rate per second in many games today, but even more games in the future. And this is important to understand. You cannot upgrade this stuff later on. But with that said, what about AMD with Ryzen Mobile, for example? They should be back in the game, right? Well, not quite. AMD is still years away from the gaming performance in a gaming laptop, and you shouldn't generally be something you guys look for if you buy in a gaming laptop. With that said, we're moving on to probably the most important piece of hardware when it comes to a gaming machine, regardless if it's a console, a laptop, or a desktop PC. I'm obviously talking about the graphics card. This is also the one single component that will drag up the price the most, so it's something to be aware of, guys. Now, since the launch of Sony PlayStation 4 Pro and the Microsoft Xbox One X, game developers have been pushing what's possible in games nowadays, the visual aspect if you like, and so the minimum requirements in many AAA titles today have been moving up quite a lot since then. As a result, now that the game developers have roughly around 5GB of video memory to play around with on the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. Now with that said, generally in the lower budget friendly price point, you will find laptops with Nvidia GeForce GTX 1050 and GTX 1050 Ti models. Even though it's a budget graphics card, it should be enough to play most AAA titles in full HD or in 1080p. But if you have a little bit more to spend here, guys, the GTX 1060 is definitely the way to go in my opinion, and it will give you a computer that will last you a longer period of time. Now, something we need to touch on here is the video memory in a gaming laptop. The GTX 1050, for example, comes with both 2 and 4 gigabytes of video RAM, and to be frank, 4 gigabytes is the only one to consider here. Don't even think about saving here, guys. It is not worth it. That you might have seen videos recently that I've posted here on the channel where I've tested games with insufficient memory, and guys, it's simply not worth it, especially not in a gaming laptop. You want to have at least 3 gigabytes of video RAM, and so if you find a gaming laptop with the GTX 1060, that chip also comes in a set of 2 different specifications. We got 3 gigabytes and we got 6 gigabytes, whereas the 6 gigabyte is obviously the one to prefer, but again, 3 gigabyte is mostly enough for 1080p gaming if you want a visually great looking game. However, if you decide to go with a GTX 1060 with 6 gigabyte of video memory, you should have the option to move up a step in resolution, giving you the chance to game at 1440p. In this case, if you have the cash to spend for a GTX 1060 with the 6 gigabytes, it might even be worth it to jump up to GTX 1070. This will allow gaming at 4K. Now, the most advanced graphics card is the GTX 1080, and this is a beast among graphics chip in a gaming laptop. This chip is a little bit extreme, however, and often costs more than what most people are ready to pay. Now, something worth mentioning here talking about this graphics chip is NVIDIA Max-Q. Every graphics card from NVIDIA now comes with this Max-Q naming. Now, what does this mean? By default, you would think that it means better performance, but it's not fully true. It's actually the opposite. Graphics card with the Max-Q naming have a lower clock speed and are optimized for better power consumption and energy efficiency, which can give laptops with a Max-Q GPU a tighter and more compact and ultimately a thinner design as a result. And you should expect around 15% give or take performance loss with a Max-Q GPU, but at the same time 30 to 40% less power consumption as a result of this, so it's a pretty good trade-off. Again, as for AMD and Radeon, AMD is still behind here when it comes to graphics cards for laptops and shouldn't be something to consider. So as you can hear, guys, right now you want an NVIDIA GPU in a gaming laptop. There are, however, always a few exceptions here, and if you know about these few exceptions, you can probably find something on your own since you clearly understand what you're looking for. Now, when it comes to primary memory, RAM or storage, 8 gigabytes of RAM are enough for most AAA titles right now, but the boundaries are constantly being pushed here, and so even though 8 gigabyte is fine right now, it is a minimum requirement in many cases, so if your wallet can handle it, 16 gigabytes is what I like to recommend. Now, when it comes to storage, there are a few things to be aware of. Game takes up a ton of space. Many times around 100 gigabytes for a game is not unusual. That is why you shouldn't buy a gaming laptop with just a single SSD with, let's say, 128 or 250 gigabytes. You want to be sure you at least have 1 terabyte worth of storage. A best looking scenario would be an SSD for your operating system and an additional, let's say, mechanical drive for your games, and that's about it. Last but definitely not least, we got the screen, of course. Today we have gaming laptops supporting 144Hz and support for G-Sync. This, however, is more premium-like features in a screen, so you need to be aware of that. If you have a strict budget and you want as much bang for your buck, so to speak, generally it might not be worth it for a limited budget. If you can afford it, however, it's definitely something you want to consider for a more fluid, tier-less experience. And guys, that concludes my best tips in this buying gaming laptop laptop guide. Now, what tips did I miss here? Share your best tips in the comments below. I cannot wait to hear what you guys have to say. Until next time, guys, have an awesome day, alright?